This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and in today's episode, we're going to make it an easy one, and hopefully something that you guys will be able to use going forward, and that's how not to look like a tourist when visiting Las Vegas. We've made somewhat similar episodes going over these kind of topics, but it's mostly about like things to do for your first time, what you shouldn't miss. But honestly, this is going to be a fun episode where I just kind of like explain the things that irritate me as a local, but as somebody who goes to the Strip a lot, there's certain things that people do that it's like it is definitely your first time. So we'll be going over that in this episode coming up next. Okay, so starting things off, it's going to sound like a negative podcast, but it's not. I would say it's definitely going to be more of a light teaching of how to operate in Vegas and look like you know what you're doing. I feel the same way like when I go to places that I've never been to before, like New York, or places I have been before, like Los Angeles, and you kind of just want to blend in with the populace. And I think that's also a really safe way about going about traveling in a city alone. So first things first, so you come to Las Vegas, and I would say this is actually a good thing to know beforehand. I just like to always mention this. When you book hotel rooms in Vegas, if you can possibly book directly with the hotel, that is the best way to do it because you're definitely going to be a lot more flexible in terms of the type of rooms you get, where it's located, any like added amenities that you want to have, like closer to the elevator or higher floor. Those are definitely taken more into consideration if you book directly with the hotel rather than a third party, because with third parties, I would say Expedia or Travelocity or things like that, you purchase a set price, and those are basically a block of rooms that they have for that inventory. So it'll be very much what you ordered online is what you're going to get, and there's no room for wiggle room, which for the most part is usually not bad when you go to other cities, but in Vegas, you're trying to get upgrades. You want to have a little bit of flexibility in that department. So that's number one. So we fly into Vegas. If you are somebody who's flying into Las Vegas and you're coming basically from anywhere, even the West Coast, but for the most part coming anywhere from the East going west, and you want a beautiful view of the Strip when you're flying into town, you want to sit on the right side of the airplane. Right side of the airplane will actually get you a beautiful view of the Strip, the Sphere, which is really quite nice. I'm not going to say that it's like the absolute most fantastic view because of how the airport is oriented, but it is your way of giving your Vegas moment by being on the right side of the airplane. So I'm talking about when you're sitting looking at the pilot, so you're looking towards the front of the plane, you want to be on the right side of the airplane. So that's a really small thing, but I think it's just kind of fun to mention that, you know, when talking about Vegas. I fly Southwest a lot, so you get to pick your seat. You get to basically pick your seat once you're in the airplane, but if you're booking ahead of time, that might be something you want to look into. But again, it's totally up to you. It's not a huge thing that you have to do, but just a nice little touch for you to know. So once you do land at the airport, there's basically 3 different modes of transportation to get from the airport to the Strip or downtown. Essentially, you can take a taxi, old school way, totally doable way to do it. And they're actually making it a little bit more affordable to go by taxi because they now have set prices. It's their way to actually compete with Uber and Lyft is by having these set prices when you go to certain zones on the Las Vegas Strip. I think they have like 3 or 4 zones, and they're all, you know, ranging from like $12 up to like $18 or $20, depending on how far away you are from the Strip. So that's one way. And that one, you just go to a taxi stand. There's plenty of taxis lined up. Sometimes it's a very long line, just depends. Other than that, you can also do Uber or Lyft, which is definitely the most popular option if you do not drive a car, or you don't have a limo or a sedan picking you up. Uber and Lyft is probably the most popular way to get to and from the airport. And the way to do this is you're going to land in Vegas and you're going to be at your gate. I would not order it then. I would not order it when you are leaving your gate, unless you have your bags with you, which then I'll tell you how to get to that part, like what's the perfect timing of ordering your Uber and getting to your Uber and not having to wait a super long time. Because you've probably seen those videos on, you know, online of like massive waits at the airport for their Uber or Lyft. It's honestly like not that terrible. Like I've been in one of those like groups, but I don't wait, you know, 30 minutes for an Uber. This is the way you do it. So you're going to land, you're going to get, you got your stuff, you're going, as you walk, you actually have all like gates have to end up at baggage claim, which I think most airports are like that, but this one is actually quite massive. It's a very large baggage claim at the Las Vegas airport, and it's all in one area. So once you get to baggage claim and you're waiting for your bags, once you get your bag from baggage claim, or you're in baggage claim at that point with your carry-on, that is when you want to order your Uber. I would stop, order your Uber at baggage claim, and typically it takes about 5 to 7 minutes for your Uber to come from where it's staging to the actual pickup area, because the Ubers and Lyfts do not stage right at the Las Vegas airport. They have to stage quite a bit of ways near the university. There's like a vacant parking lot, and then from there they'll actually get their ping, and then they'll drive, which does involve a stoplight. One stoplight before it actually gets to where the airport is. So it could be quite a long time. So the way to sort of time it out is you want to order it when you are at baggage claim, and then by the time you get to baggage claim, you'll probably wait maybe 2-3 minutes. And with this, the Uber and Lyft pickup area is located on the second floor of where baggage claim is. So you'll be on baggage claim, which is the ground floor, and that's where the taxis are located, on the ground floor. And then from there, you either go up an elevator or up the escalators is the easiest way to do it, to the second floor. From the second floor, you'll see where it says ground transportation or Uber or Lyft. It will say Uber or Lyft. You'll have to walk across a little bridge that does have a people mover on it. Once you cross over, it is a empty area, which used to be it's in the actual parking garage for the airport. And this one in particular has been cleared out and is now for Uber and Lyft pickups only. They are pretty serious about you waiting in that sort of staging area, but by the time you're there, it should be about a minute or two, and then your car should be pulling up. And then from there, you're on your way. I know with Uber and Lyft, it's really difficult to tell them like where to go, but if you are staying anywhere like near Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard, so that's MGM Grand, New York, Excalibur, the Link, Mandalay Bay. I guess Mandalay Bay, they can go the other way. But if you are staying anywhere like in that quadrant, so New York, Excalibur, and MGM Grand, or even, let's just say Park MGM, I would recommend you tell them to go down Tropicana Avenue. This is like an old school taxi trick, is that they would take you, they'd say, oh, you want to go to the Strip? You want to take the freeway? And everyone always thinks that's the fastest way. That was always the way to get more money out of you, by taking you on the freeway, because you actually have to make a gigantic loop, get back onto the I-15, and then get wherever you're going. And it always added like another like $8 to $10 on your fare. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier because you can see where you're going, and you don't have to worry about that as much. But yeah, Uber and Lyft drivers are something else in this town. But anyways, once you get there, you get your Uber or Lyft. This is what you don't do. Number one thing you don't do, you do not walk. Do not walk from the airport to anywhere on the Strip. I know it looks close. This is like the number one thing. And sorry if I'm coughing, guys. It's allergy season. So don't do that. Just it's actually like kind of not irks me, but it just irritates me, I guess, is when you see people thinking like, oh, it's not that far, I'm going to save some money on this walk. And as they're walking, they find out that it is absolutely unbearable. Just because it is not a direct line, you basically have to make a gigantic like square to get to the Strip itself. And by that time, you are exhausted. So don't ever try walking from the airport to the Strip. I forgot to mention you can also take the bus. I've actually never done that, so I couldn't tell you how that would work. But you can take the bus from the airport to anywhere on the Strip if you'd like. Just follow the directions on the line. And also, you can go rent a car. The rent-a-car site is actually quite... it's actually quite convenient, just because all the rent-a-car all the rent-a-cars companies are actually in one location. So you actually go to that location, which is off-site, which they do have a shuttle that will take you there. And you don't have to make many stops. There's only really one place to pick up that airport shuttle that will take you to the rent-a-car. And from the rent-a-car, that is actually where you will pick up your car. They have all the major carriers. Another little fun tip is that if you'd like, you can actually rent a car from the hotel you're staying at. You can always check the pricing on this because sometimes they are a little bit more expensive or sometimes a little bit cheaper than the rent-a-car center. And this would involve you just taking an Uber or Lyft to your hotel. And at your hotel, they'll have a designated rent-a-car service. Most MGM properties use Avis. So if one MGM property has Avis, essentially all of them will have an Avis. Like I know MGM Grand has an Avis. New York has I think they have an Avis rent-a-car. And then Park MGM has an Avis. So just depends. I think that's sort of like the preferred carrier. But I haven't, you have to double check because I think most MGM properties will have a rent-a-car area. I don't think Caesars has a rent-a-car. And I've never actually seen them with like a desk. And I've never seen their actual parking. So this might be a thing where it's just an MGM property thing that I just always notice because that's really what you see when you go to those parking lots. And I used to have to book Avis rent-a-cars, and they were actually quite easy because you just had to book them, and then I never had the keys. I never knew. I think the Avis rent-a-car was actually in the main lobby, which we never really dealt with them very much. I think it was closer to the business center. So they were the ones who had to give them the keys. So I booked it. They would have to go over there, get the keys, and they're good to go. And they do all the stuff that they do. So moving on from that, once you're on the Strip, I have another transportation thing for everybody. Don't try to call an Uber on the Las Vegas Strip because sometimes they'll pick you up, but they will not. There is actually, you're not supposed to, and that's actually a ticket for the Uber. If they pick you up on the side of the street, they can get ticketed and fined for doing that. So whenever you order an Uber on the Las Vegas Strip, you will have to go to the nearest hotel to pick it up. It'll actually direct you if you are ordering an Uber or Lyft on the Strip to the nearest hotel. So if you called it in front of the Cosmopolitan, it would actually tell you to go to the Uber or Lyft pickup inside of the Cosmopolitan, which is typically where the main drive is, or a designated area. Fountain Blues was weird because they actually have two, which are in very different places, which is actually quite nice down there. But they kind of hide you in other areas. The funny thing about Uber and Lyft in town is that the reason that taxis don't like Uber is because they obviously take all their money. But a big thing a long time ago with the taxi authority was that they couldn't pick up in the front of hotels. So they're only allowed to drop you off in the main drive if they don't have any other options. And taxis are the only ones available to sit or stand or in the main drive, which is interesting, which I always thought was kind of cool. So that's the Uber and Lyft thing. That's actually the biggest thing. That's the number one thing that I've said. Excuse me. You've never been to Las Vegas and you have no idea what you're doing. Is when you're sitting this happens all the time at Circa, which is downtown. And the Uber and Lyft pickup is inside of the Garage Mahal, which is the big giant garage that they have there. And people are waiting for their Uber outside on the street. And that's not where they pick up. And it's actually very dangerous because they try to pull in to the entrance to the Garage Mahal and people actually could get in an accident. So the number one thing is when you're looking to get an Uber or Lyft, go into one of the hotels and order it from there. Because then it will tell you where to go specifically to pick up your Uber or Lyft. That's all I have to say about that one. So checking in when you're, by the way, this is all things I want to kind of revisit kind of what we're talking about here is to look like you know what you're doing. Just know. Here's another little fun tip for everybody. There's a lot of fun tips and tricks in this particular episode today. When you're trying to look for the exit, we will never put it on a sign. That's a number one thing. I think everybody knows that they never have any windows. That's a big sort of Vegas thing that everybody kind of knows. But sneakily, we do not put signs on anywhere until you're actually at the exit and there is a fire exit sign that they have to have. So, fire exit sign. So what I recommend you do is when you first get to town and you figure out where the strip is. So that's always the number one thing is you got to figure out where the strip is because that is where you're trying to go most of the time. And that's also like where like the main action is. Figure out what restaurant or bar is next to the exit. So this goes for really any place on the strip. So I'll use Cosmopolitan as an example. The Cosmopolitan, the barbershop, which they want you to go to because, hey, it's something that makes money, or the Henry. You want to look for signs for the barbershop or Henry, and that will get you to where the exit is to go out of the Las Vegas Strip. It's also kind of a bad example because they actually do have windows. So head towards the light is where you're trying to get to, but also like their sports book is right next to the exit. So this does take a little bit of exploring to do on your own to figure out where the exits are. Typically, like for me, if you ask me any hotel on the Strip, I could probably tell you how to get out of there over the phone, to be honest. This is a lot of practice doing it for my property, but just walking around the Strip, knowing where things are, I can usually tell you how to get out of a hotel on the phone with like less than 3 directionals. So it's pretty helpful. And again, it's because I know like the landmarks. It's a lot of like landmarks, which I think is a problem with this generation that doesn't know how to, find places without GPS. That they don't look for landmarks. That's a huge deal. And landmarks are huge in Vegas because we don't have signs for everything. So look for the signs. Let's name another hotel just for fun. Let's talk about the Wynn. So like if you're at the Wynn and you're, let's just say in the sports book, that's sort of deep inside. From there, or let's just say the Awakenings Theater. From the Awakenings Theater, you want to head back towards the casino, so you'll be able to see that eye line. You'll find the sportsbook, and you basically just want to wrap around the sportsbook, so stay along the sportsbook wall to the Flowers, which is a big flower area, and there you are. That's your exit to go to the valet that gets you out to the Las Vegas Strip. There's another way that you can do it. You can go through the mall, which is right by the Carousel, which is a very beautiful long mall with Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and that actually gets you out to the exit where the escalators are that will cross over to the Venetian. So a lot of this, and I did that within like less than 3 directionals. It's, if you're at the Awakenings Theater, you're going to go back to the casino, you're going to follow the wall across the sports book, you'll see the Carousel where the Flowers are, and once you see the Carousel, that's where the mall is to go out. So that's a little bit tougher because there's a lot more it's a lot longer, but it is doable. Also, fun tip for those of you who want to be concierge, in the next coming years, that 3 directionals or less is what we're looking for. If you give anybody more than 3 directional, what's what I'm looking for? Directions. If you give any more than 3 directionals, they're not going to remember how to get out of there. So just keep that in mind. Mine for MGM Grand, which was a very large hotel. It's like the 3rd or 4th largest hotel in the world. I would always tell them from our concierge desk is that you want to go this way to the bar, make a right, and you're going to follow the signs to Hakkasan. Hakkasan is right next to the exit to go to the Strip, and that's how we get there. So find the thing that is close to the Strip so you remember that and how to get out of there. Same thing for like getting back to your rooms and that kind of thing. It can be a little bit more... most people remember how to get back to their rooms, but hey, it's tough sometimes. Caesar's Palace is ginormous. It is actually one of the hardest places to get back to your room, especially if you're staying in one of the big towers like the what's it called? The Octavia Tower or the Augusta Tower, which are those 2 big ones that are not close to the main floor. They're actually much closer to the front desk as well. Another thing, this isn't as big a deal now because a lot of places are very laxed with their dress code. But like when you come to Vegas and you're going out to dinner, maybe let's put some nicer pants on. The big thing is shorts. People love to wear shorts when they come to Las Vegas. Oh my God, Canadians, you guys love to wear your shorts. But sorry, that was a slow shot at the Canadian fans. Thank you so much for listening. But in general, if you are going to wear shorts, because we don't want you to get you like turned away, because it does happen, like especially when you get to higher end restaurants. But resort style shorts are what we're looking for, not like cargo pants is not what we're looking for. And usually it's good to know that usually after 5 o'clock. After 5 is dinner time. I think most people know that. But usually that weird time in between like 3 and 4, that's sort of like that weird, like we're transitioning from pool clothes to nighttime clothes. And it's important to know that. So, okay. Another thing I wanted to talk about was last thing about directions. This is a big like directions pod. Just remember this is the stratosphere is north and Mandalay Bay is south. So just keep that in mind, that is what we consider the strip, is from Mandalay Bay down to the stratosphere. Although it's kind of funny because we basically stopped going down the strip to like maybe Fontainebleau. And some people say the Wynn is basically where you're at. Another thing is just like knowing like how far you should walk. Just know that the strip is 4.5 miles long, 6.2 kilometers. I remembered that. But you don't have to walk the whole thing. I know you might like to do that, but I don't recommend it. And just know that the walking the strip itself is not flat. It's not a flat possibility. You are going to have to go up elevators, escalators, all that good stuff. And just know that when you're on the strip, most people down there are also tourists. So that's kind of the fun thing, is that you're all kind of like lost together, which is always nice. I always like to recommend to walk on the west side of the strip rather than the east side of the strip, because the west side is newer. So you have a lot more modern walkways until you get to about Caesars, and then it like tightens up, and then it gets like weird again. But and then even from there, once you get to the Wynn, you have to cross over and walk on the Venetian side, because they're building the big giant guitar over at the former Mirage footprint. So just a couple things I wanted to mention. Oh, and if you are on Fremont Street, just know when you're on Fremont Street during the daytime, yes, there will be a lot of homeless people down there, and it is kind of part of like someone's charm for Fremont Street. Not my thing. I'm actually, if I can never go to Fremont Street during the daytime, I wouldn't go. It's not my thing. I don't enjoy it. Although some people love it. Fremont Streets is really great at nighttime, because it's a lot more people are going to be down there. It does get very busy. So if you're somebody who is sort of not a fan of crowds, I don't recommend going to Fremont Street during the week. During the weekend on the evenings, just because it gets pretty intense, because they have live concerts and that kind of thing on Fremont Street. I think I got most of the stuff I wanted to get off my chest. This is a very relaxed episode today. I'll come back again on Thursday with something else. But today I just had some things I wanted to, get out there and hopefully help anybody who doesn't want to look like a tourist when they're in Las Vegas. Just, have a clue. That's all I got to say. Have a clue, guys. But thank you so much. Follow me on my Instagram, which is Brian Ortega, Brian_Ortega 26, and then Concerts Confidential _LV. Maybe we'll be doing more videos, soon coming up. But again, that's where you can find all of the socials. So thank you so much, guys. If you see me out in town, come up and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.